take your seats. The session will start in 5 minutes.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, приветствуем вас на...
Dear ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you at this discussion session dedicated to tools for innovation development, how to match the trends of technical and technological progress. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm happy that this discussion has gathered enough audience at the end of this very intense agenda day. My name is Alexandra Khavina. I'm the advisor to the CEO of the National Association for Technologies Transfer, and I'm very grateful to the Russian Railways for inviting me to be the moderating of this innovation development discussion, and I'm really happy that the Russian Railways are the members of our association as well. Let me introduce the speakers. Sergey Kobzev, Deputy Managing Director and the Chief Engineer of JEC Russian Railways. Alexey Borovkov, Vice-Rector for Advanced Projects, St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. Mikhail Roshkov, the Technical Director of JEC Transmash Holding. Pavel Ilichov, Executive Vice President of Finance and Strategy, Jeffco Group. Anton Zubikhin, Deputy General Director of STM, General Director of Trading House, STM. Bolat Zhardemov, General Manager of the Scientific Research Center of Complex Transport Problems, Kazakhstan. And we have Dmitry Alpin, the Manager of the Investment Portfolio of RVC. We'll be joined by participants of discussion from the audience, Alexandra Zajigalkin, the Chief of the Center for Innovational Development of RZD, and Valery Shubaderov, the Chief Engineer, and Marat Shakenov. We hope for him to join us. If he doesn't, I will not give him the floor. So, today during the plenary session, we heard that the main objectives for RZD is speed and flexibility. The speed and the flexibility of changes are the characteristics of innovational and highly adaptive system. The creation of such a system requires very thought-through solutions and even exercise, as in sport. Sergey, you were the initiator of this panel discussion. You have raised the question, and you're ready to share how the system of supporting the innovation at Russian Railways is organized. Thank you, Alexandra. Good evening, dear colleagues. I'm happy that I have been given this honor to open this discussion. The topic that we have suggested as for discussion is very important to us, and I'll say more that the building of an ecosystem allows us to respond promptly to the changes in the innovational sphere, in the development of techniques and technologies. And this is the main thing that is necessary for large corporations to pay attention to in its development. And we understand that every issue has its own history, and we have our own traditional forms and formats of supporting the innovational technological area. It's the technological development and financing of R&D and research and exploration and application works. We seem to be doing everything, and we are in industrial science, but the research is done in the world. They have shown that it's not enough to take the position of a big transportation system, and the railroads, Eurasian railroads, are is essentially a global system. And the Russian railways are the key element of it in their connections with the trade and commercial routes and ways in Europe and Asia. When we came to the realization of this project, we considered many new suggestions how to create this this platform and approach that would allow us to speed up the process and develop as the company of RZD. And we came across several difficulties. The first, we needed to prioritize things and set priorities. And this slide shows a matrix. And on the left-hand side, in orange color, we have the main innovational projects group and their support and their implementation ensures the accomplishing of objectives till 2025. On the other hand, we identified the tools of supporting of our internal work, and we have obtained new tools besides the traditional initiatives that we have always had. We began practicing open public requests, publishing, and the figures are still small. We only began this work in terms of a few projects in the safety of trains circulation while crossing automobile roads. It showed us a wider range of issues and aspects that will allow us to solve this problem. We also looked at external sources outside of RZD system, what is being done by the government, where our machine manufacturers, machinery industry colleagues are working at. It allowed us to focus at each of the elements and each events in our key parameters. If we talk about transport logistics, there should be a technology which has been mentioned throughout our today's sessions. It's seamless process. It's seamless transportation for the user to be able to use. It was announced yesterday as well. So a client who sends the cargo can actually apply and file the documentation digitally without the participation of the agents of the transportation company, so that the documentation can be looked at by customs and the border control. It works across the CIS countries and is very good. If we go to the next slide, coming to the next problem, we realized that we have a under-structurized work. As an example, there is a common practice of identifying the level of readiness of technologies at the levels of from 1 to 9 on the scale of 1 to 9, beginning with fundamental research and leading up to the mass production of program software. And we saw that in a range of cases, we saw some gaps where the test or a sample manufacturing or production and the mass production of some product takes up to 3 years, and the company actually acts behind in its technological innovations. And we tried to figure out what we could do in order to avoid this gap. On the one hand, this slide shows our partners. It's the Competence Center for Technologies. That was the impulse was given to us by the St. Petersburg Polytechnical University. We're very grateful to them because this work needs to be structured, and we went through agreements and through common roadmaps, and in a range of cases, by application of universities, technical universities having industrial partners allows us to participate in national contests. Our colleagues from Rostec and Rosatom also came along with us, but then our work slowed down and we began digging deeper. Next slide, please. And this slide shows the challenge that we faced. These shows us the readiness of technologies at levels with sources of investments. And as clients of RZD, we came up with levels from 5 to 8. We called it the value of the shadow of death. We cannot actually influence this segment. I cannot finance or invest in the infrastructure or production of a test sample. There is a problem. On the other hand, if I don't participate in the process, if we don't participate in it, it doesn't allow us to obtain a locomotive or a carriage or a rail that will actually raise the efficiency of the transportation system as a whole. Then we went to our colleagues and partners and offered them an option that this particular segment, we called it the plan of support for innovations. It's an internal documentation which expanded our capacities and our arsenal, working together with Transmarsh Holding and other governmental entities such as Kolkova and the RVC. This is a complex of industrial development. And this foundation is focusing on our targets, our objectives in transport and logistics. Then it would allow us to get away with this value of the shadow of death, with the obtaining of samples and ready products. What we would like to suggest to our colleagues and partners is to try to discuss in more detail our plans and actions to harmonize the plans in research and development to actually come up with a chain from a test sample to a mass production. For example, we have a project that we'd like to implement in using fuel elements in locomotives. For example, using hydrogen. In order to obtain such a test sample, we need to come together with Rosatom, with application science, to go along a very tough and long road in order to put this schematic together. And so the signing of agreements and contracts should come in as a momentarily event in a short period of time. That way it will allow us to obtain such a test sample, and which will lead us to a high quality rolling stock matching our requirements. So coming to the close of my long speech, I'd like to wish our manufacturers and suppliers to come up with their ideas as to how to make the work more efficient and better result in our work. So we see this mechanism as such. I have a couple of questions. One is a remark. So the foundation of innovation and industrial development, will you form it along with partners, or will it be in ownership of RZD? Yes, we would like to make it along with our partners, because we're basing our expectations and plans on the mutual interests of the manufacturer and of the consumer. And we are discussing a lot on the topic of technical requirements for particular products. We are discussing this coming from the fact that we don't have enough industrial support, because the manufacturer thinks they think that the consumer, the client, wants to transfer all the risks to them. And this format, in our opinion, will somewhat this scenario is the most comfortable one. So in essence, we are sharing the risks for both the client and the manufacturer. The second one is of a more general nature. So managing innovations. Do you actually calibrate which ones you're expecting the earlier? In my view, as a non-expert, the basic technologies in RZD are very mature, are very old. And are you expecting any or open for any new innovations technologically that will improve the processes overall? What priorities do you have? I understand that you have a whole range of questions, and I'd like to still leave time for my colleagues as well. Well, I'd like to note the following. We are ready and open for suggestions, and we're started this work, and we witnessed the activization of our personnel, and we have over 12, million and 200,000 employees, and about 400 new ideas from local water purification facilities, for example, to ecologically pure, environmentally pure technologies, to very complex solutions and inspection tools in defectology, for example. But I'd like to focus our attention on the fact that we'd like to see breakthroughs in the areas to which, for that aim, we're attracting as much scientific and university-based personnel. We'd like to change the efficiency and improve it radically. We're talking about the rails, the metal used for the production. Our rails have the capacity of 1,200 million tons of load in its life cycle. But when we talk about the Trans-Siberian trunk roads, the load is overwhelming there, and it was mentioned at the plenary session, at the opening ceremony. So the focus of our attention shows us what we'd like to obtain. A large company, we are a large company, we're an ambitious company, and we have ambitious objectives. We would like to obtain absolutely new, radically new technologies in the extreme north, and in a range of cases, the traditional solutions for reinforcement and underlaying ground surface for the rail is no longer, and the sand and gravel mixture is no longer satisfactory. But we have been using mixtures, including polymers. All of that should be used. And so there are different various soils, specific soils that cannot be used for underlying layers for the railroad. So the creation of an ecosystem, which is a buzzword. So creation of an ecosystem is important. That could enrich everybody interested or participating with technologies and ideas. In Kazakhstan's railroads participate in this process, and Uzbekistan and Belarus also participating in the creation of such an ecosystem. Thank you. Let's go to our Kazakhstan's railroads. I'd like to dedicate my next question to them. Thank you for building such a bridge to them.
So, as far as I know, Balad Badalevich, the criteria as speed is very critical in Kazakhstan. Is that true? And how to provide this speed? As far as I know, your research shows what are the ways how the speed will change the railway transportation business as a whole. Please, can you share your experience? Thank you. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for the invitation to this forum from my Russian colleagues. So I have been studying in Moscow. So I have, as mentioned by Mr. Kobzev, I was very curious and got hooked by two words. First was a presentation by Mr. Belazorov that our freight is becoming, our cargo becoming lighter. So when we multiply ton per kilometer, we can see that we are actually losing our ton because the unit, the cargo carrier is the same. So the second paradox is that what I was hooked by, today was a presentation named Cargo by one of the speakers. So he said about the delivery time, 10 days, 16 days, and from the central China to Hamburg, for example. So he was also talking about the speed, that he mentioned that 10 days is too expensive. We are proposing it to our client, but it is too expensive. So those two issues I got hooked on. So let's come over to the first slide. Can I have a clicker, please? So here you can see all the data about the Kazakhstan railway transportation during the last 17 years. On this presentation you can see very classical approaches with the green and blue. This is the speed of delivery. This is the speed of delivery, which is relative. But still you can see how dramatic was the drop and the upgrade of the speed. So furthermore, to talk about the system of our railway transportation, it is a network which is connected by 7 speeds. So when we're talking about the full life cycle, so half a cycle is on cargo transportation, half a cycle is empty, and then at the bottom you can see also the warehouses, loading and unloading stations. So all this together makes the speed of the transportation. On this very interesting slide, you can see the first station at the speed and how it develops during the last 17 years. So here you can see the dynamic and the relation between the relative and absolute indicators. So the cargo transportation, as you can see, the development goes rather slower than the passenger one. So the speed of delivery we made as the main indicator of our railway transportation. We called this unit as a transport unit delivery. So here we're talking about the mass and the speed. And at the top we have the cargo turnover. So at the bottom you can see that in some cases the dynamic equals and quite similar, but in sometimes the dynamic of these two is opposite. So on the next one, this is maybe a very clear and easy to understand picture. On this x-axis we can see the speed of delivery, and on the y-axis is the cargo turnover and the transport unit. So if you pay your attention and if we take the delivery speed, and in Kazakhstan it exists, it's the most understandable for the final user. That's what they want to buy, the delivery speed. If this speed of delivery in the upper corner, never it will be one which will be important for the operator, because he wants to transport in tons. So we need to combine them together, the speed and the weight. Then it corresponds, and then it's interesting for both, for the operator and for the final user, for the consumer. So here, as it was mentioned earlier, this is a sample. We are defining the speed, and we're considering that for the general cargo database, there are some indicators. They depend on mass cargo, on the season, on our main Kazakhstan industry giants, and transit cargo, high-speed trains. So we understand what do we need technologically to improve, to develop it's in the right corner of this presentation. So each speed requires the management of the speed. This for the transit cargo we have called smart analysis, and the ring cargo transportation, the average planning for the social cargo and for the seasonal cargo. And the main slide with which I want to conclude my presentation is this one. Here on the y-axis you can see it's a new indicator, the transport unit. So at the bottom on the x-axis you can see the daily fleet in Kazakhstan. So the fleet is also a cargo ton, but which is on wheels. So if you consider it as this, so the transport unit for us is an energy indicator. And when we're talking about the cargo turnover, it's the transportation of mass without work. The transport unit is this directly linked to the kinetic energy. Then we can see that this 48% of the transport work and 27 in Kazakhstan. And this work we're doing on the railway, and 56 we are concentrated in the loading and unloading station or on the technical maintenance station. So if we take it in general, we can see that it relates that we are spending 36% of our energy on the railway and 66% at the unloading station. So every worker can feel this difference. But we were not able to show it because our cargo turnover was not carrying out this kind of research work. So to tell you briefly that if we talk about 1 ruble, so 36 kopecks from this ruble we're spending on the railway, and 64 are costs. Costs when we're doing the maintenance, the loading, unloading. So generally these are the results of my research briefly. Of course our research is way deeper. So why I have came to Sochi? Here in Sochi, on this big forum, I wanted to find co-minders with Russian scientists and Russian universities, so that those scientists can consolidate. And we want to achieve this seamless environment. For us, it's a general goal, and I want to find co-workers here who will be doing the research together with me. Oh, thanks a lot. For me, as an amateur, as just a simple user of a passenger train, so I thought that it was implemented earlier, that with selling speed, for example, when we're talking about the train from St. Petersburg to Moscow, if you want a fast train, you're spending one tariff, one amount of money. And if you want to go with a slow train, then it's different. So for private company, I agree. The logistics and private companies, they do work like that. But if you talk on the federal level, we have an anti-monopoly committees. So for the federal companies, it was not allowed. So we are somehow strangled. So I'm trying to be a protector of federal companies, to free them, to open their hands. So let's continue. And let's go out of the perimeter of the innovation within the company. Let's talk about the partnership. Partnership when we're developing innovations. And Alexey Ivanovich, as far as I know, between the St. Petersburg University and the Russian Railways, there is a so-called Mirror Engineering Center. So this center should be developed and should transfer competence on development of the digital copy, digital clone. So what is this Mirror Digital Engineering Center? How it will work? How it will create this digital copy? And what are the ways of cooperation within the field of digitalization? So thanks. It's a very interesting term of the Death Valley, which was mentioned by Yuri Alexeyevich. So the Death Valley was first used in the year 2014 during the meeting of the board of the president. So we have trying to implement a new professional production technologies. We were trying to implement them, to show them, and we wanted to tell that we will witness this Death Valley when we'll get the first 3 readiness levels, and then we'll get to the 4th one. So then the current activity is financed on the level 8th and 9th, but in between we have this Death Valley. So the innovations are going to the shelf, or they're not published at all, or they are just getting stolen by some foreign countries. So the more work you do, the easier you will lose your idea. So those centers, they will try to solve this issue in different fields. So our goal now today earlier mentioned during my lecture in this parallel forum. So I was showing this death valley, how to avoid it, how to cut it out from you. So with the help of the new technology of product development, with this digital copy, digital clone, as it was mentioned earlier. It's not only a mathematical model when we are trying to do the model of different approaches, but it is also important to have digital copy on the matrix of the targeted goals and resource limits, ecological and other restrictions. So this matrix in our samples can have for different industries from 50,000 and even more. So like Cortege project, which we have participated actively there, the matrix had, which was created by us, 125 targeted features, targeted indicators. So using one indicator, and if you're changing one indicator, you can see how the whole system changes during the old life cycle of the system. So engineering of the system is very complicated and it has a long lifespan. So the key issue here is the mathematical model. So it is important to create all those experiments which were already accumulated in this industry. We call it digital brainware. So digital brainware is a new term. So when I was saying that Korolev against Musk, so I was saying that we need to digitalize all the achievements which we have been done by the experiments in the past. Hypersound, for example. We need to digitalize all the results of those experiments with these supercomputers, so using those technologies which were not available to our previous inventors. So the Death Valley, how is it characterized? So the target becomes more and more complicated. So this very complicated task in front of Russia is way more complicated than the one which was solved during Russian experts in the past. We have less time and we have less money to solve this more difficult question. Besides, this difficult target is also complicated to solve because we don't have an adequate personnel, where they are not trained properly. So to solve those issues, first of all, we're making strategic partnership with different corporations and brands. We're happy that we have signed this contract with Russian Railways. Altogether, we have 62 agreements with the Rosatom, with the Rostech, and with other big corporations. So altogether 62 institutes. In some cases, we are the general and major executive. So what have we found later? So talking and working with these big companies, they are distributed through all the country of Russia and Federation. So we can see that, unfortunately, we do not have enough competence in different regions of Russia. So we're ready to provide experience. We're ready to move forward. Our model, our business model, is solving new challenges which are very complicated for different industries. So that's how we can see their further development. So on the base of this technology, our partners can develop, but we have nobody to give this knowledge to, because first of all we need to do the training. Within the framework of NEOCR, we need to carry out joint works. We need to create experts and coal miners. So because you can give only to these well-educated staff. So as the structure, we have developed this mirror engineering center. The word was given to us by Rosatom. So they have developed this term, the system of the cleaning of the Viber thief, which is working on the 7G. It's a long-term providing the work. So we have tried through this reverse engineering with the spectral engineering and finding out our own results. But on the 6G level, it was not possible to achieve the result. But using the new technology, after 2 or 3 months, we have managed and built up and made a solution for 6, 7, 11 and 12G. So but that was a different engineering process. So 8.8 were implemented. More than 1 year passed, but the world leader has not answered our quest. So the solution exists. and their solutions, they are hidden at the moment. So now we're working together with our economists, because the economy today does not feel what we're doing and what is the result, because we are making a guaranteed a reserve development. So this is a term of the decan of the Moscow State University. So we have the answer, and if the market is ready and want to use this solution, we're ready to provide it. So this is the competence to provide the work and the knowledge from our joint team to get this so-called fast win, and to use it as best practices and to provide this knowledge to our partners in the industry so that they will be able to scale up this work. So this is the work which we're carrying out together with lots of regions, industries. In Perm region, for example, we have the Regional Center of Engineering, and together with them, all the industry of Perm region. So this is how we work. This scheme of work is very important, and I think it's the only solution when we're considering those very fast changes which are in our environment. We need to react to those challenges very fast, and we need not to try to solve the problem just by ourselves. We need to delegate the duties to our partners, to our colleagues, so that they can continue the work within their sphere.
Очень
Well, your speech actually seemed very interesting to me, and we'd like to popularize it through the National Association of Technologies Transfer, the ideas that you mentioned, because with the transfer of those, without the transfer of those technologies, any development is impossible. So we hope. So as a member of our committee, you will be participating in the promotion of those ideas. Further, we'd like to continue talking about the digital doubles, and let me give the floor to Mikhail Rashkov, because the JSC Transmash Holding is creating digital doubles for locomotives, as far as I was told, in manufacturing sites, and even in other things. Well, good evening, dear colleagues. As a matter of fact, we see the history of digitalization of any particular piece of or goods. We can also digitize processes, and we look at the elements in manufacturing, and these projects are being implemented at our manufacturing sites. At the final stage, we are in a very beneficial position, very good position in research and manufacturing and providing services. We're a part of a group. So only through the life cycle being applied to the whole life cycle, digitalization may come to help and may lead to profit. Concerning digitalization, we can speak for a long time and in much detail. As the previous speakers have noted, it's the basis for all development. From the point of view of innovations that Sergey Alexeyevich has voiced, we have come to particular implementation of the project. We signed 2 agreements with Russian Railways in modernization of the rolling stock, in transferring the rolling stock to the electrical power and hydrogen-powered engines, so that Sergey Alexeyevich has mentioned. For us, such approach is a shared risk partnership, and in many senses, any innovation is a high-risk thing, and the probability is high to come to negative results. But investments in such trends without any support from our key consumer, it would be a risky investment. So that was about approach. So the options that were suggested and the failed stages that we had before, so they might work in such format and can be implemented. When we were preparing for this session, you said about in trust environment where the exchange of information can take place. You talked about the situation with servicing and maintaining the locomotives. Can a similar environment be applied to the data accumulated, which could be used as a solution for that value of shadow of death that was mentioned before, in order to understand what kind of locomotives or rolling stock be necessary in the nearest or further future as a major demand for the Russian railways as the main operators of those carriages and rolling stock. Alexey Ivanovich mentioned 130 or 120,000 parameters that are being become a part of the structure of the big data that we talk about. Well, so this the limitations can be added limitlessly in creating, designing digital doubles. So accumulating the data that is being generating at the operational level, this will unequivocally lead us to use that data in a design stage, which will increase the quality and the consumer qualities of the rolling stock. I meant more towards the assurance in what you are designing and that mutual connection and that two-way connection that you have with the Russian railways. Well, it's not only about expectations or about real design, but about the compliance of the rolling stock with the reality and the requirements. Of course, it will be seriously increasing the attractiveness of such rolling stock for the consumer and for the client. When you talk about a trust environment which is being implemented by the Russian railways and the manufacturers and the clients, it's a very important step that will influence processes as a whole, as a life cycle, from the design and manufacturing and servicing stages. Thank you. I'd like to continue focusing, talking about the value of death, talking about other additional tools to overcome it. Is it my correct understanding that there are financial tools such as financial and legal tools as a delivery or supply contract or agreement, and that would be an answer for Anton Zubikhin. Thank you, dear friends and colleagues. I'd like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to speak at such an event. I'd like to thank Sergey Kobzev for the meaningful information in terms of the Russian railways development, because the Russian railways is the top of the innovational cluster that defines the requirements for the rolling stock that we manufacture, for the components manufacturers, and we currently are far along in understanding of the cost of the life cycle and of the ownership during the last 40 years, because the Russian railways is setting the requirements of the life cycle for elements and goods and products for 40 years ahead. So when we evaluate it, we're not thinking about the current costs, but also the foreseeable costs throughout the 40 years ahead. What maintenance or expenditures will be emerging. So the topics that are prevailing at this discussion is digitalization. I'd like to note that the digitalization is our only way of salvation, and I can say that it concerns all of Russia's industry, and we participate in a lot of bidding procedures in Europe, and we see that China is the number one player globally as far as transport machinery manufacturing. When we look at how China integrates the products in LCC, is the speed is overwhelming, and the governmental support that were introduced last year in one of the measures was a killer. It was 50% of subsidizing of the production costs for products. It allows to overcome and win over the market in the foreseeable future if we don't provide governmental support, and that we will not be able to withhold that aggression. Our foreign customers and clients, they share the paradigm and the view of products being ready in 16 months that will be supplied within the contract of a life cycle. Under the bidding requirements, there will be very clear-cut requirements for the product throughout its life cycle. And we have a very clear understanding of the fact that if we don't focus on modeling and designing and amending the structure and offering new products at the level of digital doubles and so forth, the world will surpass us very quickly. If you take the export, it's equals 82 billion euros in the last year's figures. Russia has only 3% of its share. We have a big potential for growth there. The market is distributed. 52% of the global market is taken by CRRC, a Chinese company. But nonetheless, I'd like to talk about something else. I'd like to note that with the Russian railways, we have gone a long ways, and we've done very serious work in creating locomotives working on natural gas natural gas fuel, and we are very grateful to the research institute that dedicated their long time, 7 years of their time for this development. I'd like to note that the application of alternative types of fuel is a global tendency, and the Russian railways are within this trend, and within the transport machinery manufacturers where pay a lot of attention to technologies, and natural gas fuel-based locomotives is our priority, and our company is focusing on that, especially in its railroad application, and the process is also undergoing in Canada, in the United States, and in China. And the company, which belongs to Warren Buffett, it's upgrading its old locomotives, equipping them with piston engines running on natural gas fuel, and the RDCU Research Institute is also working in the same direction. There was a strategic agreement signed in 2016. It actually implicates the areas of use of natural gas as fuel for the industries and manufacturers of transport machinery. We need to understand that this is a long-term strategy, and we are working not only along with the Russian railways, we work along with the group of companies Gazprom. Currently, there has been developed the first new locomotive working on natural gas fuel with a capacity of 8.2 megawatts power. We signed an agreement to manufacture 23 extra locomotives running on natural gas fuel. We signed an agreement in supply as agreements to supply 23 gas fuel locomotives. We will deliver the first maneuvering engine locomotive with a capacity of 1,200 kilowatts, and the demand for such models is growing. And this year we signed at the Russian Energy Week in Moscow another agreement to supply 12 locomotives. The demand is growing. It's gaining momentum for new products. If we take a look at the prospects and evaluate them in terms of using natural gas fuel engines, there is statistics based on the Russian railways in order to provide those locomotives in the extreme north will be the demand of 24 locomotives, and the further work will involve another 50. And at the Baikal-Amur trunk railroad, the demand is in over 200 locomotives. Returning to the open roundtable discussion, I'd like to note that the introduction of such serious innovational technologies is impossible without digitalization, without digital doubles, but it's also impossible without governmental support, because the expenses to develop such large-scale products costs hundreds of millions of rubles, if not billions of rubles. And this burden cannot be transferred automatically to the tariffs of the Russian railways. We'd like to be competitive abroad, and we need new ways of governmental support. And at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, there was a decree number 1312 for subsidizing innovations in order to cover the R&D expenses. And nowadays we see that, knowing that this work is being done by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and if there is a decree from the government, there will be a certain and serious push to develop new products like locomotives running on the natural gas fuel. Thank you.
So I would like, with the next issue, to address the question to Alexander Vladimirovich Zazhigalkin. So I'm interested. Do we have a microphone to give to the speaker, to Alexander Zazhigalkin, head of the Center of the Innovation Development of Russian Railways? So I wanted to talk and discuss about the financial tools. What are they? How can they be implemented? And how and what is being used in the Russian railways? What do we use? Do we use the special agreements, contracts about the delivery of future thing or not? What is your experience? Anton Vladimirovich already mentioned about the agreement about the future delivery. Yes, we're trying to use the same tool as well as any tool in this innovation sphere. So we always have to take and keep in mind risks. So talking about the agreement about delivery of the future thing, which we have already in Russian railways and other companies, shows that where there is a product, an innovative product, within a program of the import substitution, where we're not talking about highly risky innovations, then this instrument is working. But if we're talking a high-scale breakthrough innovations with the result after only 5-7 years with high risks, this instrument does not work. So at the moment, in our company, we carried out all the norms and legislation database. We have created and developed 7 first priority spheres and projects. But it will work only in one case, only if we have a delegated and reliable partner. And from one side, the product will be easy to reach and where we can distribute risk. So then this agreement about the delivery of future things such as locomotives will work. But at the moment, we do not have a simple, even one success case, because this instrument and this tool is rather complicated. The federal support is indeed needed. Another thing, maybe talking with financial department, we had a very fruitful discussion with them, and we had a representative during this discussion panel, and those representatives were telling that we have more money than we have infrastructural projects. Bring the projects and we will be in the queue to finance them. So when we're talking about the innovations, about technological innovations, the situation is quite similar. There are more financing and money than well-structured projects. So daily, we need to work on preparation, on structuring, on building up and tuning the project. And the best project, if we do not consider and treat them with the tender loving care, then those products, even the best ones, are disappearing. So a lot of solutions, so that if they don't go to the Russian railways, they're going to the Rosatom. If they don't work in Russia, they will saying that they will run to the Silicon Valley. We can see a lot of startup projects in the IT sphere are moving out from the country. So our goal in our systematic approach is to develop a comfort environment for our innovators. So we need to have a motivated refusal with explanation why we cannot take it as it is now, but how to develop it. That's why we have the accelerator. That's why we have a special funding system. Yes, we have one fund. We do support innovation process to get a very fast and well carried out trial of those investment projects. So money, even though exist, but the well-structured projects and tools are not present. That's why we need to create one more time good environment for the developers to develop their projects to the final stage. One more thing, another problem, what we are witnessing constantly, not every investment project for the Russian railway are applicable. We are at the end of this chain. So we will try then to send those innovators to our partners so that they can be used in their production lines. So that was briefly to answer your question. Thanks a lot. I also have a comment. It's just a rather small comment. I agree fully with the previous speaker. So talking about the agreement of the future delivery, it helps us and enables us to pass the death valley. So because it is a kind of a warranty that the producer will make it on his own account, but if he will succeed, then he will get a payment. So we have the same situation with Gazprom at the moment. We have this agreement with them. So we're hoping that with this delivery of this locomotive, we'll work on the same scheme in the future with Gazprom. So to extend our way of speaking, we will move away from Russia, and now we will find out what is the situation and what is the European experience, how they work with innovations. Pavel Dmitrievich Ilyachov will show us some practical cases, how to implement experience with the external partners by the company Jevco. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this great opportunity to make a presentation. As it was mentioned earlier during this panel discussion, I would like to start first with this small introduction. We are on the other side of the barricade. So before we were talking about fundamental science and the practical application of those science work, but we are logistics. We're logistics without any assets. So for us, the history is slightly different. So we're working with the scientific research institutions, and with few institutes. We are also cooperating with Skolkovo, for example. But in our case, it's more valuable when we're talking about the speed how fast the decision making is going on, what are the practical solutions, how they can be implemented tomorrow. Not after 1 year, not after 2 years, not after 5 years, but tomorrow. So for us, it is a fast solution which is within the digital field or new technologies. Technologies which are unable to ease the product delivery to our client or to optimize the logistics. So I'll tell you how we're building up in our company the innovation sphere. So the internal discussions were in the year 2017, beginning of the year 2018. In the second quarter, we have came up to the decision that we will make up a system from 3 main components. First component, we have talked watch and BI. So this is detection, new ideas and opportunities. We're trying to find out those new ideas, new directions, those innovative approaches which can be useful for our business. So the second part is the call it innovation factory. Here we're talking about the experiment. So later on I will talk about this in details. So this is a broth where we're brewing our ideas from which we can come up with practical cases. Here we are collaborating with business leaders, with the future clients who are ordering those innovations, and with our employees who can generate the ideas, who can come to our factory, what can be implemented. So we are also bringing up startups and external counter agents. So those external talents which can help us to implement the most breakthrough technologies. So the bottom one is a kind of a glue. So this glue helps us to combine, to link together collaboration in this system. So it's with external ecosystem. We are partners with Textas, Paris accelerator company. So they're helping to carry out startups. They're trying to combine the young talents with business to join them together. They have their main headquarters in Paris. And we have an agreement with them. We're partners for the next 3 years. We're using this Techstars company as a kind of a farm club for our ideas. We're proposing them our ideas. They are helping us to find partners. And if we have a great idea, they're helping us to find startups or proposals. How our idea is possible to implement on the practice. So the combination between these 3 main components is the key issue for us. So the innovation factory, as I have mentioned earlier, it consists of 3 main directions. We're trying to compile the ideas. We're trying to use the accelerator and the practical implementation from the top with our business needs and business sponsors. So when we get any practical case, we don't want to define a specific budget for that. No. With every leader has to find out that they're ready to finance this or that idea. So then this leader is risking his own budget. So if we will just provide a budget for some innovation ideas, we will not get a serious commitment. We will not have a serious commitment, so people will be just spending money. That's why we decided not to carry out for tests a special budget, but the startup or the team who found and create this startup, they need to find also a financial source. Who will be the beneficiary of this idea? So from the left-hand side, ideas and new technologies, disruptive products or business models from the external sources and startups. So, or from the other side, when we carrying out several times a year roundtable meetings with startup leaders and with talented innovators, to select those who are useful for us, who can help us to implement our projects. And the most interesting part, that's our last year, was a breakthrough in innovations. We said that the year 2018 in our company will be the year of innovations. So we give an opportunity to every employee to come out with his breakthrough idea, with his how to develop the business process, how to make easier, more attractive our business, how to provide better services for clients. So we ask them to prepare a 2-minute video for our innovation factory with his proposal. After that, our innovation committee was looking through all those ideas. They were making evaluation if we need to try to work on it or not. Later on, I will show you how it works digitally. And so what is the result? Proof of concept is the result. Those are the practical tests. So then it is the stage when we're getting the financial source. Sponsors are ready to pay for that. So this is the test, the proof of concept, proof of technology. If after 3 to 6 months we do not find any practical implementation, we're killing the idea, even though it is violent. Because the speed for us, the speed of our decision making is important. Otherwise, we will get a time trap. So if we're postponing the idea for 3, 6, 12 months, then we have a zero result, but we lost our main asset, time. So here is the key parameters which we put for the practical tests. So 3 months period, testing period, 30,000 euro is the budget for this testing phase. And if this project is implemented with one of the startups, then a full commitment and full responsibility from the startup that during this period of time they will dedicate all their time to us and to our activity. So few ideas about the statistics, about this funnel which we've been talking about at the beginning of the session. During those 15 months since the middle of the year 2018, 49 ideas were tested from 16 countries. 15 projects were selected, and the budget for each of them was 30,000 euros. 7 of them came over to the POC stage with startups, and 3 projects out of those 49 have actually implemented in the business. One is the chatbot for the integration of new employees, so it's HR project. Second one is a Tarot Analytics company, is the optimization of our logistics in Luxembourg, Belgium, and Netherlands. And the third is a financial sphere, is the automation of the process and invoices with the Renault automobile company. Coefficient is a 6% of success. 6% of success is a rather good result when we're talking about the first initial stage of the project, because quite often this figure is less than 5% when talking about this implementation funnel. So flagship projects, what we're doing now in the innovation sphere, have participated in the previous sphere session. So those 2 projects are already presented. They are the key for us. We are investing heavily in them. For us, they are fundamental. The first one is called MovieCar. It is a digitalization of our business when we're talking about the car transportation. Through all the diverse list of our IT solutions, we're trying to come up with one unified digital platform. It will be not only dealing with the industrial flow of cargo transportation by car, but also for the secondary car sale. So the market of the secondary car sale is 4 times bigger in some countries than we're talking about the new cars market. So for us, it is a big share, and it's a deep ocean, and we want to dive in it. Right now, we have an experience of active work with the different car share companies, renting cars, companies. We're dealing with the auctions for used cars. So you try to combine them in one industrial brand, so that to have this product for the whole market. So this is a key issue for our main business. Second, is the purchase of the company Chrono Truck. So we have in July we have completed this contract, and we purchased the company. It is rather big for Europe. 10,000 clients, 7,000 carriers, operators. So with optimization of cargo transportation. So today we're integrating this platform after we have purchased it, and by the end of the year we will start to do the adaptation of this program to different markets. By the year 2020 we will roll out this program in Europe, and after that we will also implement it in Russia. So 2 more projects which are at the moment in the stage of rolling out. The first one is related with the external partners and startups. First one is the road optimization, Tarot Analytics. So these are the spare parts. Spare parts, we are operating in Belgium, Luxembourg, and Holland. So second one is optimization, robotic process automation. Those are special algorithms. They enable to optimize simple routine processes. So the robot is doing it 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we have starting this rolling out in Renault company. They are one of our biggest client, Renault auto company. So they have a huge data flow. So people are making mistakes, people cannot work 24 hours a day, but algorithms they can do. Therefore, we can minimize the routine process expenses. By the end of this year, we will finalize this project with Renault. We can see it is a successful one, and we will scale it up and use it for our businesses and other companies. So on the last page, two more interesting projects. Now they are at the test stage. First one we're testing is this augmented reality projects. Everybody knows about this Google glasses. So we have the same special product for the Microsoft. So we're trying now to do these tests in Holland, in one of our warehouses, which are dealing with the medical equipment and pharmacy. So you're setting up this augmented reality VR spectacles, and then this person, depending on what is in front of him, boxes or something, he understands how he should pack this product. Then you have zero mistakes. You have much faster speed. People are very confident. They are comfortable because for them it is very interesting. It is innovative. So right now we can see how attractive it is from the financial point of view, and we're pretty sure that we will implement this project next year. And the last project which we are discussing now with the big producers, car producers, and every car today we have SIM card or virtual SIM card which enable us to ask for rescue in case of emergency. So for cars which are the high-end ones, so they have internet, and we want to use this technological element which is already in the car to collect data about the car movement and roads, to use the full track and trace function to collect information when we're talking about the delivery of different cargo, both for us and for our clients, for the optimization of the process. Thanks a lot.
In your speech, I liked that part when you can actually send a video about your newly discovered technology with your suggestions. Could you please go into more details about how you organize this as a business function? Who will be watching that video? And just how do you process information that is being suggested as technological innovation? Who makes the part of this committee, and who is this the number of people who are persons who are evaluating or assessing and proving those concepts? From the viewpoint of the flow of ideas, where we have actively participated in a campaign for it was an internal media campaign within the company where involved 40 countries and several thousands of employees, independent of their positions, opening the opportunity for each employee to record a simple, short 2-minute video and send it to an innovation center. And there's a committee compiled with experts involved in this process, and experts who have been hired from the innovational sector. There are project managers, there are business strategy experts. So they do the initial sorting out of screening those projects. So it's their daily job to consider or assess those ideas. Is it their full-time job, or is it there something else to take care of part of their job assignment? There are actually four people on staff. and the majority of their assignments is to actually process and evaluate. And there is a structure above them. It's an innovational committee, and it includes all the key managers and players in the company, and there are a few other people who are within that committee, and the committee is presided by the president of the company. It shows us and everybody how important it is to us in our key projects. Thank you very much. I was informed that Mr. Huber General, he is in the audience. He's like to talk about the Russia-Austrian platform, obviously related to the possibility of introducing innovations.
Thank you very much for the possibility here in Sochi to participate at the International Transport and Logistic Forum ProMotion 1520. I'm deeply impressed by two things: the wonderful surroundings of and in Sochi and the professionalism of the organization of this Congress. Congratulations to RZD and Gudok. What I'm here for: Russian and Austrian railways, as well all known, have always been national strategic companies. The development of railway infrastructure, machinery, rolling stock and other has a direct impact on our national economics, as well as multiple businesses and people. Not long ago, the extensive development played a major role. There was a lack of track, distance, trains and wagons. This task by the railway industry in general was overcome. Nowadays, we speak about efficiency, clever technologies and skills which introduce a higher and a more competitive level of real services among other industries, reduction of costs, a longer life cycle and smart e-management is our focus, not in the future, but now. Together with RZD, ÖBB and Austrian Ministry of Transport, Innovation and Technology, we set up the Austrian-Russian International Technological Platform to accumulate all industrial and smart achievement in Russia and Austria to reach a common goal. We will work together in different technological directions: construction, maintenance of infrastructure and rolling stock, signaling and tunneling, development of sales technologies, support and growing of manpower. In other words, we are developing and starting a comprehensive technology portfolio that will deepen the economic and industrial exchange between Austria and Russia. We make technology and know-how transfer in both ways easier, faster and more efficient in the sense of lower risk, faster decisions and direct connection to the decision-making process. So what is the purpose of this Austrian-Russian International Technological Platform and what does it offer? It is pretty simple. It offers marketing and coordination of innovations in the railway sector and provides marketing and coordination of innovations along the entire process, value and innovation, with focus on digitalization, ticketing, green technologies, tunneling, railroads, signaling, etc. To be more precise, we focus on ensuring marketability of innovations, creation and setup of tech joint ventures, inclusive financing, partner management for complex international tenders, technology transfer, support harmonization of railway technology in the fields of digitalization, big data and IoT, 5G, artificial intelligence, ticketing, payment, signaling, tracks, railroad, materials, energy and green technologies, healthcare, diagnosis and maintenance, switch systems. Extensive preparatory work has been carried out to provide support for the certification, adaptation and localization of productions in different countries on the basis of the value creation of projects and the opportunities for their future use. We have developed and started a comprehensive technology portfolio in the following areas of plant engineering, operation of railway infrastructure, tunnels, bridges, alarm systems, rail vehicles, digitalization and development of integrated management systems, including logistics, vehicle management, development of sales systems, e-tickets, sales, development of energy-saving technologies, and others. We identified and named also potential partners interested in joint ventures in different fields of technology where more could be more specified in the next future. If you want to get access to the international and European market, we are approved and a reliable partner. Thanks for your attention.
Спасибо. У нас осталось совсем немного времени.
We have very little time left, and we have only one speaker to go. In order to save time in our efforts, I'd like to give that last speaker to actually draw some conclusions of this discussion, because it's the only speaker who is not an expert in the area of railroads. But I'll try to give him the remaining load as an investor, a specialist, an expert in investments. Dmitry, I'll build a bridge towards you. We discussed various tools of innovation management, and you as a government institute of development representatives, which of the aspects deem important to you? Would like to add something? What hasn't been involved yet or mentioned yet? Thank you, Alexandra. I'll take a short time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to have joined some results, and there are results to show. And the audience, sometimes they don't know what the Russian venture company is about. This is a company basically as an governmental or state entity that takes care of all the developing of all the venture system in Russia, and we're also a foundation within a foundation. We have 7 foundations within our organizations, and there wasn't a single Russian startup who hasn't gone through us. In essence, we are in an innovational hub that unites and consolidates universities, entrepreneurs, and startuppers, transport technologies, R&D centers, venture funds, financial entities. So it's a big hub for innovations, which allows us to see the innovational agenda, the big picture of it, in the form of a big picture. And what I have heard today during my colleagues' presentations, there has been much said, and many correct things have been said. Let me point out certain things. And Sergey Kobzev showed us a diagram, and at the top of it, there were levels of readiness of technologies. It's a TRL. I don't know what the Russian term for it is, and with various tools listed for support of it. I'd like to add at minimum 10 tools to it. At the initial stage, it's the grants technological innovation initiative are available. It was mentioned twice today. And further, there is a foundation of innovation support, or Bortnikov's foundation. There are various venture foundations with Russian venture company is participation without it. And Scenari, it's the Russian export center. I participated along with them in Minpромtorg along with them together a couple of weeks ago. They offer a whole range of tools in supporting of Russian exporters. It's all of the information about the international market for exporters is available, including tools. So the tools on behalf of the government and non-government entities, depending on who you are and what part do you play within the ecosystem of innovations, I'd like to say that whenever we talk about innovations in railways, when I was planning to come to the forum here, and they kept asking me what's common between the railways and innovations, where the railways is and where are the innovations, what's the connection between them. There is a whole complex of things. The railway industry and the Russian railways are the right player to actually implement those innovations. If we go back to the economic theory, the first point of view is Smith and Marshall's theory, which stated that it's within the free competition environment, the innovations will win their battle for the client. But there is another, an opposite point of view, which says, no, no, no. As a matter of fact, the monopolies who possess the majority of resources, including financial ones, may withdraw the rent and invest the finances into research and innovations, which no other player in the market can afford. If we remember that the Russian Railways is a natural infrastructural monopoly, then only such a player as Russian Railways, possessing all of its resources, including human resources, material and scientific and material and technical resources, is able to invest in innovations. In innovations. As a matter of fact, when Sergey Belazarov, he began the panel discussion, he said that we need breakthrough innovations. In our terminology, it's called basis innovations. It's innovations which are called to radically introduce new products. And there are improving innovations, as Alexandra has mentioned. If an industry wants a basic innovation, the only prerequisite for that is cooperation between the players within the industry. There are no other solutions. There are a few countries where when there was cooperation happening between the players within the industry, there was a diffusion of innovations, mixture of innovations. Whenever a supplier would offer a new service, there would be a new service emerging on the client side. So was a diffusion happening. When we talk about basic innovations, there needs to be cooperation. When we talk about improving innovations, it's about modification of the product or improvement of the process. Then there is a possibility to create such thing within a company, such as Russian Railways. What I am driving at, as a matter of fact, the Russian Railways, as a central player in the railway industry, has a very important role to play to consolidate within itself the best practices in working with innovations. And thanks to my colleagues from JEFCA group who shared how they work with the startups, with the external examples like Paris Techstar accelerators, and there is a very similar accelerator as Generation S, and they first run a scouting across Russia and CIS countries and regions like Middle East and Israel. In such, whenever there are projects that have been screened, and they come to the review for shortlisted, and they move forward to the practical application within the company. And there are a few examples when a corporation can just purchase those startups and establish a new department to implement and hire the startups within that department. There can be a contract for supply with the startup, or partial purchase of a startup company can also happen. And the Russian venture company, they have a good practice, and if they need any assistance, please come to us for that. And a couple of words about such a tool that has not been mentioned is venture funds or foundations. We're at the final stage of signing an agreement with the governmental transport and leasing company to create and establish future venture foundation to invest into industrial technologies within the context of the in the Industrial Revolution 4.0 in terms of digital and cyber security and life cycles of environments. But the venture foundation as a mechanism can consolidate the players. For example, if there is a venture fund which would include Russian Railways and other players like Transpash Holding or Scenari or others, that foundation could finance startups and would not allow startups to die away without leading to anything. That's why, as a matter of fact, in reality, from the viewpoint of tools, there are many of them, and there is a lot of money for that. The question is about how to target and focus and correctly understand how these tools are integrated in the innovational strategy and how this innovational strategy is integrated in the long-term development strategy of the company. So if all those components are rightly put together and they're implemented correctly, then the results would be great. Thank you very much. Dmitry, I would disagree with you on just one thing, that Russian Railways is a monopoly. I think the systemic efforts that have been applied by the innovational departments of the company, they may indicate that the competition pressure is being felt within the company. On behalf of the automotive transportation companies and just the global transportation market as a whole. But as for the rest, it's very interesting. You'd like to add something? I stand by every single word that my colleague said. My mic is on. The influence that the innovation has on the strategy back in 2016, when we were developing our company strategy, if I remember correctly, out of 120 or 130 pages of our strategy and financial models, about 25% was the part dedicated to innovations, new technologies, and their influence on our business, because it's the foundation for the whole company, beginning with the president and ending with the lowest level worker, so that they would all understand that this is a foundation and that is actually the important for the industry, and this is the thing that we are taking seriously, and we are ready to spend our resources and time, and that we will ready to get to the practical part of it within the nearest future. Thank you, colleagues. It was a great pleasure for me to participate in this discussion, and I'd like to continue our cooperation within the Association of Transport Technologies. Well, this session, I'll announce it as closed, and I wish to all of you a relaxing night, a relaxing evening. Thank you.